Senior year is supposed to mean something, right? For me, it didn't mean dick all. Just another day on my calendar. I got a job at a family restaurant that we all grew up eating at. Burgers, breakfast all day. You know the spot because your hometown, I'm sure, has one too. I ended up working full time. My parents didn't push for anything more than that. They figured I'd move on eventually, and I think I honestly figured the same. Most of the days would look the same: sleep, video games, work, repeat. I wasn't miserable doing this, I just didn't feel much of anything. I told myself it's temporary. Eventually I will do more. The weed came with the job. Almost everybody there smoked: servers, cooks, bussers, people I'd grown up with, a few years older than me. On breaks, we'd slip behind the building near the dumpsters, where the smell pretty much covered everything. Somebody would keep watch and somebody would light up. It was my portal into substance use, and it was some of the best fun of my life. The first time I hesitated, my hands shook a little when I took the pipe. Jenny laughed at me, told me to relax, so I did. After that, work just wasn't easier. It was a blast. Time flew by. Nothing could get under my skin. I started looking forward to the dumpster breaks more than the end of my shift. One of the cooks sold weed on the side. Everybody knew. It's where most of us got our supply from. You wanted an eighth or a quarter, just asked him and brought cash. And for a while, that's exactly how it stayed. Nice and easy and familiar. My dudes. That's the part that I didn't get into yet. How thin that sense of safety really was, and how fast it can actually disappear. The cook's name was Ryan. He had never burned anybody. Same price as same deal. You handed him cash during a lull, he handed you a bag later. No more stories, no bullshit. So when I asked him for weed that night and he shook his head, it threw me. I didn't re-up. I'm totally dry this week. That annoyed me. I was new to smoking but didn't want to be cut off. It felt right away, this low buzz of frustration teetering on some kind of crash out. Jenny noticed I was off and asked me what was going on. I told her. She thought for a second, then unlocked her phone. There's a guy I've used before. It's not my regular guy, but more like my brother's friend. She paused for just a beat. He cool? I asked. Yeah, just you be cool. She sent me the number, no name. I texted it near the end of my shift. No response after that. I checked my phone over and over, desperately. Finally, I get a text saying, "What you need?" I told him. Said I'd pay $60 for an eighth. Just put my cards on the table. That works, he texted back. You free now? No, when I get off work, if that's cool, I said back to him. We closed, the restaurant slowly came back together and chairs were up, floors were mopped, and it was just about time to go. Just got out, I sent to him. A minute later, I got my response. Old Quarry Road, follow it to the end, by the well. I stared at the instructions. The road was miles out of town, no lights, no houses, just dirt and trees out there. What the fuck is this? I told myself it's a safety thing, right? First time deal with a complete stranger, but whatever. So I texted back, on my way. That road narrowed on the way out of town. Pavement soon disappeared, and I listened to Hollywood Undead or some lame shit on the cruise out, smoking roaches that I'd saved up in my ashtray. My headlights didn't pick up anything on any direction. At the end of the road, there was this old well framed with some cinder blocks. I parked and killed the engine. Everything around me was dark and silent. I checked my phone. No signal, no messages. So I just waited. The stars were bright and I lost myself in them, with that faint buzz of high starting to just get behind my eyes. Then I heard an engine. No headlights, just the sound. Tires popping on gravel. It stopped somewhere off to my left. I heard doors open and close, and a handful of people then approached, unseen. And that's when it all hit me that I should not be out here. I grabbed my door handle, started to jump back in my car, and movement came out of the dark, 3 shapes sprinting right at me. Hey, I started, and somebody hit me in the nose before I could even finish my sentence. I collapsed into my car. Another grabbed me as I tried to stand up. I went down hard, dirt in my mouth. Someone then kicked my ribs and somebody else hit my back. I rolled over and took 3-4 straight shots to the face. I saw stars, tasted blood, but still, I was trying to scramble away. So what happened? They kept stomping the shit out of me. "Stay down," a voice said. So I stayed down. Hands went through my pockets, my wallet, cash, keys, phone disappearing. Nobody said a word. They dragged me to my car and went through it, pumped the console, flipped the glove box, popped the trunk. I lay there staring up at some stars, counting my breath, waiting for it just to be over. Them leaving, killing me, whatever it took. Eventually, everybody walked away and the engine came back. Doors opened and closed, and they tooted back the way they came from. I didn't move for a really long time because where was I gonna go? They had my keys. If they didn't even take my car, I hadn't checked yet. Everything hurt, but nothing felt broken. When I finally sat up, my ribs screamed and my head was ringing. My arms and legs were shaking like I was having a seizure. My car was still there, doors open, interior completely torn apart. Wallet was gone, all my cash, around $340. My phone, my Nintendo DS, and that part straight pissed me off. I saw my situation and just kind of curled up and started crying. When I was finally done moaning, I drove home, sticking to the back roads. I didn't turn on the radio. Every set of headlights behind me was making me tense up. Was afraid they were following me. Came back to finish the job. But nobody ever cruised up on me. My parents were asleep when I got home and I didn't wake them. I cleaned the dirt off my face, rinsed my mouth and went to bed, nervous I might have a concussion. The next day at work, Emily asked what happened and I told her I got jumped and didn't get into the details. "Who were they?" I asked her. She hesitated before saying, "I don't really know. They're friends of my brother or people he knows. I've only bought from them a couple of times." That's all she had to offer me. I thought about calling the cops and ended up deciding against it. I didn't feel like explaining why I was out there or what I was doing. There was nothing I could point to anyway, nothing legal anyway. So I just took the hit, picked up a few extra shifts, then stayed quiet about it. I didn't buy from anybody new after that and just stuck to Ryan. Decided not to be so desperate to smoke. The bruises faded, but my ego was bruised for a long time after that. I thought about those assholes every day for years and years. Nothing supernatural happened out there, no mystery to solve. Just a really bad decision on my part and, of course, people who were ready to take full advantage of it. Graduation weekend always turned people loose inside my town. Parents were usually out of town like they usually were on the weekends, which meant my house ended up being the place. It wasn't anything special, but it turned into a madhouse. It was just kind of known that if my parents weren't home, there'd probably be a party. I wasn't trying to build a reputation or anything, it just kind of happened that way. And graduation night ended up being a perfect excuse. I stocked up on beer, pulled a couple of bottles from my dad's cabinet, and made sure there was weed around so nobody got bored or edgy. Word got out fast. People showed up early, then more people, then people I didn't recognize but didn't hold up or anything. The backyard filled to the point of bursting, then in the kitchen, then in the living room. Music got crazy loud. Somebody dragged furniture around to make the room to dance and slapbox and wrestle. I spent most of my night walking through the house keeping an eye on things, making sure nobody broke anything, making sure nobody was really fighting. Control gave me this little relief on those wild nights. Just because my parents were out of town didn't mean they didn't care about their property. And that's when I took notice of 3 juniors. They stood out because they kind of looked young. Not loud or annoying, just clearly not seniors. One of them was Adam Pratt. I knew him from algebra. He sat behind me and occasionally asked for help with assignments, or sometimes he would even help me. "Congrats, man," he said when he saw me, lifting up his beer. "Thanks, you guys good?" "Yeah, we're good, just cutting loose a little." The other 2 nodded. They seemed just as excited to be here. I thought about telling them in the moment they needed to head out. It crossed my mind, but Adam wasn't causing any problems and it felt petty to kick him out, at least right now. It was graduation. Everybody was celebrating. I didn't want to be that guy. And reasons I wanted them to leave were personal and pretty much superficial. I just didn't want them getting caught up if anything went sideways. So I ended up letting them stay. At the time, it was nothing, just another small decision inside a night full of chaos. Thinking back now, I know I fucked up. The three of them left around 1 in the morning. It was a wind-down phase. People were starting to trickle out, fall asleep in the corners or on the couch, or slinging shots in an effort to black out before it was finally over. Somebody had climbed over the counter in the kitchen to dance and spit bars. Another guy was arguing with his girlfriend in the driveway. All I could think about was the cleanup. Adam found me near the back door. "Hey man, we're gonna head out." The other two were behind him, already wobbling, grinning with that drunken glow. Adam raised his drink higher. "Congrats to all the seniors. Seriously, you fuckers earned it this year. Thanks for all the laughs and the guidance, the pressure and the fun. Here's to you." A few people by cheered. Somebody was clapping. Adam tipped his beer all the way back and finished it, then crushed the can against his forehead. Even more cheers followed that. The other two followed suit. They grabbed their bikes from the side yard and rolled them out toward the street. "You guys riding?" I asked with a laugh. "Yeah, it's fine," one of them said, half leaned over. They pushed off down the block laughing, swerving a little as they disappeared off into the dark. I remember thinking it was dumb, but also kind of funny. 3 drunk kids pedaling through a quiet town. Reminded me of my own high school years. Then went back inside and stopped thinking about them entirely. I didn't really sleep much. That was kind of unusual after a party. The house smelled like beer and sweat. People crashed wherever they could. Couches, floors, the basement. I finally passed out just before sunrise, after filling up a few trash cans with wrappers and beer cans, as well as about 500 red Solo cups. I woke up to my phone buzzing next to me. By the time I looked at it, there was already a ton of missed calls and texts. Group chats were lighting up, names I recognized relaying my perfect nightmare. "Did you hear? Something's wrong. Some kid didn't make it home last night." I sat up quickly in bed, still half drunk, trying to make sense of it. At first, I assumed it was nothing. Somebody crashed somewhere. Someone's parents were freaking out a little early. It happened all the time. Kids got drunk, stumbled the wrong way, and slept it off in the woods. It even happened to me. And then as I'm reading the messages, I hear sirens outside, and by mid-morning, it was everywhere. Adam's parents had reported him missing. The 2 boys he left with told the same story to anybody who asked. They were riding home. Adam fell behind, and when they turned around, he was gone. They circled the block, rode back and forth, calling his name for at least an hour. They said they heard a yelp, like a dog, one of them told people, or a coyote or something, but they eventually just went home. Around noon, I got a knock at my door. 2 cops were standing on my porch, one older and one younger, both calm and polite. "You the homeowner?" the older one asked me. My parents are," I said. "They're out of town though. Heard there was a party here last night." "Yeah." They asked me to walk him through it, who was here, how late it went, if I knew Adam Pratt, if I saw him leave. "Yeah, he left around 1 with 2 other guys on bikes. I walked them out and everything." "Were they drinking?" "Yeah, they were." "Any problems between him or anybody else?" "No, not at all. Everybody was cool. There wasn't any issues." They asked me to vouch for the people who had been there, and I did my best. I told them the truth. It was a big party. People came and went, but nobody was fighting. Nobody singled Adam out. Nobody had a reason to hurt him or have anything against him. The younger cop was writing everything down, and for some reason it just made me nervous as hell. The older one just kind of nodded along. "Right now we're assuming he's either wandered off drunk or something happened after he left. We're trying to establish a timeline. We're not here to arrest you or anything like that." They thanked me and then left. I stood there in the doorway long after they were gone, just watching the empty street. The house was quiet, but the street felt electric. I told myself, it's just a missing kid. He'll turn up embarrassed and just hungover. Still, cars and pedestrians patrolled every street, and by late afternoon, the town was crawling. Cars were moving at a snail pace. People stood in small groups on the sidewalk and the gas station, asking everybody that came by if they've seen this boy. Adam's picture then started circulating online. School photo, awkward smile. Volunteers gathering up at the edge of town where the fields were dropped away towards the drainage ditches and culverts that fed into the creek. I stayed home, I had a party to clean up after, and I was still kind of in that denial phase. And that's when the cops came back. This time there was 3 of them, and they weren't smiling. The older officer asked if we could talk outside, so I stepped out on the porch, my stomach fully ready to upchuck everything inside it. "We found Adam's bike," he said to me. I waited and looked at him. "It was in your dumpster." I laughed. I knew right away that was the wrong thing to do, and the cops stared at me for any kind of further reaction. That's not possible. I haven't gone anywhere." He didn't react. "The dumpster, out by the curb, the one right in front of your house?" They showed me pictures. Twisted frame, bent wheels. The front fork was cracked like it had been run over by a train or some kind of big truck. "I didn't put that there," I said. "I never left my house." "Look, we believe you," the younger cop said, "but that's why we need to ask a few more questions." They asked who stayed the night, who left late, if anybody might have come back to the party, if anybody had a reason to hide something in my trash. I didn't have any answers for them. They asked to search the house. I hesitated, and then I said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't want it to look like I had something to hide. All I wanted was to get all of this out of the way before my parents got home the next day. So they went room to room, opening doors, checking closets. One of them, of course, found my weed stash in the shoebox under my bed. He looked at it, looked at me, then closed the lid. "That's not what we're here for," he said. They didn't find anything else. After they left, I sat on my bed, trying to replay the whole night, every face, every conversation, every moment that I wasn't really paying attention. I started to wonder if somebody from the party followed Adam and those others out, if somebody saw some kind of opportunity. That night, searchlights swept the field. Dogs barked off in the distance. I didn't sleep at all. I kept envisioning a helicopter banking out of the cloudy night, circling my house with a spotlight. They found Adam 2 days later. There's a sinkhole in a field on the edge of town, half hidden by tall grass. It led down into this old drainage pipe system that ran under the road. His body had been pushed and turned by the water, and it made things unclear. Hard to say exactly what injuries came from the fall and what might have happened before that. The official explanation? He stopped to take a piss by that field. It was dark, he didn't see the hole, and then plummeted 20 or 30 feet, hit his head, and died. An accident, but not everybody bought it. People continued to talk about the bike, how smashed it was, about the rumor that somebody saw a car stopped on the bridge that night, trunk open, bike laying in the road, a hit and run. Somebody panicked, somebody tried to clean it up. But nothing ever came from it. The case closed quietly. Adam became a story people just told and talked about. Some blamed the party, of course, blaming me. Some blamed the town, drunk drivers, psychos. My parents never allowed me to host a party ever again. I graduated and left town a few months later. And to this day, I carry that survivor's guilt about what happened to Adam everywhere I go. Sometimes I think back about that toast, about Adam lifting up his beer, smiling. Not just that night ahead of him, but his entire life for the taking. I think about how he rode off, about how easy it was for the dark to swallow him up. Rest easy, man. I grew up in a really small house at the edge of our neighborhood, where darkness ran the show once the sun went down. During the day, it didn't feel very isolated. Kids rode their bikes past our place, cars cut through their own way out of town, and everything felt nice and ordinary. At night, though, it got dark. Our porch light would barely even reach the yard, and beyond that was just black space and woodland. And that really never bothered me. I wasn't scared of the dark or animals or noises outside. The house was solid, safe. My parents were attentive inside this quiet, consistent way. They were involved in everything I did, encouraged me to try new things, and loved me throughout all of it. I trusted them completely, and because of that, I trusted the house. They wouldn't let anything bad happen to me, especially here. On weekends, they'd let me sleep in the living room. It was treated like this small reward, something special. I'd lay out a blanket on the floor, grab a pillow from my bed, and camp out in front of the TV. I'd watch whatever movies I could get my hands on, sometimes horror, sometimes funny girl movies. I ate popcorn straight from a mixing bowl, tried tried to stay awake as long as I possibly could. Most of the nights it was mission accomplished. I'd wake up late, covered in popcorn butter, TV still running. And that night in particular wasn't any different. I had the TV on, the living room was dark except for the screen, and I remember finishing my popcorn, setting the bowl off to the side, telling myself I'll stay awake a little longer. I don't remember drifting off, I just remember opening up my eyes again. The TV was still on, but the sound felt far away. It wasn't fear, it was just a sense that I was no longer alone, like the room had just been in motion before I woke up. My eyes started moving toward the front window without giving it any other thought. At first, I saw nothing, just a reflection of the TV and the curtains pulled most of the way close. And then, a shadow crossed the glass. I stayed still watching. The porch light wasn't on, so my eyes adjusted. I could barely make out the shape of a man moving across the porch. He was tall with a bald head. He wasn't trying to be quiet either. He dragged one of the chairs across the boards and then moved it to the small table. He moved quickly, rearranging everything on the porch. I didn't sit up, I didn't reach for anything. I just watched him shift the furniture around, lining up the chairs, then moving them again. The TV painted the wall and the glass all kinds of colors, which made it even creepier. When he finished, he stepped right up to the window. I felt my body go heavy, pretending to still be asleep without really thinking about it. Armor for most children, you know? He leaned forward, pressed his forehead into the glass, and peered through that narrow gap in the curtains. He was watching TV. I closed my eyes most of the way and slowed my breathing, leaving just enough space for me to see. The light from the screen lit his face up in these flashes, and his expression never changed. After a moment, his eyes would shift, and he looked right at me. It wasn't sudden. He glanced over, looked away, then looked back again. His eyes moved over me, taking in my face, my body on the floor, the blanket. There's no reaction to his face, which was haunting to my child mind. Was he expecting me to be there? I don't know, but I didn't move. Eventually, he turned back to the TV, and my thoughts started to catch up then. I wondered where he'd come from. Our house is not close to anything. There were woods behind us and scattered houses before town would pick up again. I pictured him walking through the trees and noticing the light from the window, following it like a moth to a flame. I didn't know how long he'd stayed there, but my legs fell asleep and so did my arms. I peeked an eye open and saw that he was gone. I waited for the shadow to come back, but instead, I heard footsteps moving across the porch. I waited a few more seconds after the footsteps started. They ended up moving toward the edge of my house. Hearing those familiar boards creak in the same ways they did when myself or my parents walked across them, it was nauseating. And that finally kicked me into action. I got up, ran down the hallway to my parents' room. I didn't bother knocking, just opened the door and whispered my dad's name. He was already awake, standing near the window with the curtains pulled back an inch. "What's going on?" I asked him. He didn't look at me right away. "I heard something outside," he said. "I thought it was you." So I told him about the man on the porch, that I'd seen him through the living room window. My dad nodded at me. He said he'd woken up a few minutes earlier when he heard those footsteps and had been waiting to see who it was. And that's when he saw the same man moving around out there. My dad picked up the phone and called 911. He kept his voice calm, gave our address, explained that there was somebody on the porch that he did not recognize. Then he opened the closet and took out a baseball bat. I remember thinking how strange it was to see him holding it like that, barefoot in his pajamas. He told me to stay in the hall and then went to the front door. I watched him from the corner as he opened it up and stepped onto the porch. He raised his voice, firmly speaking, telling the man that the police were on their way and that he needed to stay right where he was. And for a moment, nothing happened. The man stepped out from the darker side of the house like he'd been hiding. He didn't argue, he didn't speak. He walked over and sat down on the porch steps, hands in his lap, staring straight ahead. The strangest thing I've ever seen. The police would show up a few minutes later, ask him some questions, and ask my dad some more questions, then walk the man to their car. They told us they were taking him in for some kind of welfare check. He hadn't broken in or anything and doesn't really anything wrong. He didn't even try to get inside. Technically, he wasn't in trouble. After they left, my dad fixed the furniture on the porch and checked the darker corners of the property, and he said everything looked normal, looked fine. I never saw that man again. Never heard anything about who he was or where he even came from. We didn't move, but I stopped sleeping in the living room after that. Even now, I think about how calmly he just sat on those steps, how comfortable he seemed to be waiting for the police. I still walk down that stoop every day, and it gives me chills to think about the guy and how relaxed he was, sitting right there, right where I was now, like he hadn't done anything wrong at all.